Welcome into our final Locked On College Basketball bracket breakdown for the Sweet 16. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Jonathan Davis from Locked On Longhorns. Let's go. We talked about this. Obviously, you had them going pretty far in your bracket, but I can't imagine you expected this complete domination that we saw today.
No, Xavier is a really good team, and for them to lead wire to wire, in this game and be up by as many as 24 points, you definitely didn't expect that. But, that's what happens when you come out and defend the way you do for 40 minutes and you also shoot over 50% from the floor. I think it was a dominant effort on both ends from the Texas Longhorns, and they took care of business, and now they're in the Elite Eight.
We talked a little bit earlier this week about Texas has been winning in different ways, which is what you need when you want to make a championship run, right? Like they had that Penn State game, was very back and forth. They had other games, they didn't shoot very well and from behind the arc at points, but this was just a complete game to the point where you're looking at them kind of like, oh, they might have it in them to like really finish this out.
Yeah, well, when you look at the last 7 games on the defensive end, this is the most points they've allowed in the last 7 games. And so as you get, closer to the end of the tournament where teams start to, separate themselves from the rest of the bunch, it's really the teams that can play defense and can rebound. And they can do that, but we've seen they can win in a multitude of ways. They didn't have Dylan Disu tonight really for only like 2 minutes, and they still found a way to win by double digits. So this is a team that's battle tested. They've won all kinds of ways in the toughest conference this year in college basketball. And now they're 3 games away from a national championship with a really talented team that can win in different ways on the offensive end and the defensive end. And they have multiple players that can lead the team in scoring, as we saw tonight with Tyrese Hunter.
Disu came back. He had that walking boot on. Obviously, they had it going tonight and on all cylinders. But what does that mean if they don't have him in the next round?
Well, I think it's big just because of the way he's been playing lately, and he gives you such a efficient presence in the post, somebody that can score at a 70% clip and really gives you a lot of options, especially off of that high pick and roll with Marcus Carr, Serge Rice. But what a lot of people don't realize is now that people are watching Texas on a national level, Dylan Disu really has been found money for the last 2 weeks. He averaged 6 points a game for the majority of the season. He's really just kind of turned it on the last 2 weeks. So this team has been winning all season without big scoring outputs from Dylan Disu. It's definitely a big loss because he gives you another option to go with all of those guards you saw tonight, in the post. But like I said, this team is been winning all season without big offensive outputs from Dylan Disu. And so they'll have to do that. It looks like in the Elite Eight they'll have to do that in the Elite Eight against Miami without Dylan Disu.
I mean, obviously that just shows how deep this team is, because if he's just been doing it the last couple of weeks and he's one of the best players in the tournament so far. Looking forward, obviously as dominant as you guys were, Miami came out and kicked some butt in their game as well against Houston. What did you see in that game where you were like thinking, obviously you were hoping they would make it to this point where they'd be playing them, but that's going to be a tough one as well?
Yeah, Miami's a tough team, and they have elite shot making. I think you saw with Isaiah Wong and Nigel Pack. I think Nigel Pack went for 26 tonight against U of H, who had the second best defense in the country coming into the game, So that's a really good shot making team. They have really good guard play, and Texas has really good guard play. So it's going to be a dynamic game. We saw tonight Texas got up and down and really scored in transition. That's something that Miami wants to do. So like I said, the last 7 games, this team has really hung their hat on the defensive end. If they want to get to the Final Four, they're going to have to play really good defense and stop those guards that Miami has. So it's going to be a tough game. It's going to receive some really good guard play. I think it's going to be up and down, but for Texas to get to the Final Four, they're going to have to defend like they did tonight against Xavier.
I mean, do you think they'll try to do the run and gun and outgun them that way? Or what do you think strategy wise would maybe work best for them? Obviously they're adaptable.
Well, I think you want to get out and transition against any team and get some easy buckets. But, what's really good for this basketball team is they can execute in the half court as well. And we saw that all night. So, I think anytime you can get out and transition and get some easy buckets, you want to take advantage of that. But the good thing about this Texas team is we continue to talk about how they can win in different ways. And the fact that they can sit there in the half court and execute just as efficiently is something that you can always lean on. But anytime you can get out and transition and get easy buckets, Rodney Terry and this basketball team are going to take advantage of that.
We love Rodney Terry on this show, of course, so we have to give him the shout out.
Yep.
For, you mentioned some people that don't see Texas all year long, they're seeing them right now. Have they been this way all season, or is this something they've come together and built up to this, or have they been, how have they been throughout the year?
Well, I think they had the offensive firepower all year, but I think the defense and the rebounder was inconsistent. You know, I've said it a million times on the podcast. The last 2 games that they lost before this 7-game win streak, they got out rebounded by 30. This was a team that in a lot of games was getting out rebounded by double digits, and that's not a recipe for success in March. So that's something that they've really cleaned up over the last 7 games. And then I talked about on the defensive end, they gave up 71 points tonight. That's the most they've given up in the last 7 games. So we saw how out of sorts Xavier looked, and statistically, that was the worst the Texas defense has played in the last 7 games. And Xavier literally looked like they had no game plan, you know, all game long. So I think that's been the flip that has switched for this Texas basketball team. 8 games ago, I wouldn't have thought that this Texas team had a legit chance to win a national championship because of the defensive inconsistency and the inconsistency rebounding. Now that they've put that together with what they can do on the offensive end, I mean, Texas looks unbiased like one of the best teams in the country and a legit national championship contender. So they've definitely flipped the switch, doing the little things the last 2 weeks on the defensive end and with the rebounds.
They absolutely had it tonight, dominated on all ends. Jonathan Davis will have you covered. Locked On Longhorns on tonight's game and looking forward to the Elite Eight. Always check out Locked On College Basketball, all a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.